Markets ignore global crisis. Hey, everybody, you're watching Bull Boom Bear Bust. This is a late night report. It's Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. You may be watching this on Thursday. Now, the reason I'm putting this one out later tonight is because I was actually occupied today. I actually had surgery. Let me see if I can pull up a picture here from the hospital. And here's one I had texted out here. I wanted to show my purple socks off. You can see the IV. Basically what it was if you've seen the show Dr. Pimple Popper, it was a Dr. Pimple Popper type of thing where they had to extract this weird growth under my skin. It's on my shoulder. So not major, but they actually had to put me under anesthesia, so I had to get admitted, and then there was a wake up time and I felt groggy and stuff like that. I had to have somebody drive me. So it wasn't a huge operation, surgery, or anything like that. Wasn't an organ transplant, but still took a big chunk out of my day. So still putting this video out here for you today. Today, the markets were up despite the Fed hiking rates, and it was the biggest rate hike in decades. We're going to talk about that. So why are markets ignoring a global crisis? Well, the global crisis has been discussed not just here on platforms like mine, but even leaders of countries, even the leader, quote unquote, leader here in the US, saying that the global food crisis is about to get real. And there's more evidence indicating that the global food crisis is ongoing and about to take a turn, a much worse turn. And we're going to talk about that. Why are the markets rising, though, at these times? That is the question. We see all major indices today in the green. Dow Jones up 2.8%, S&P nearly up 3%, NASDAQ over 3%, Russell 2000 2.7%. Oil's ticking back up again. It was slightly in the red, but we're up to $107 a barrel. And just recently, here is another warning that came out. World hunger exploding after 25% spike before the war. And take a look at this huge spike in grocery costs. This is a worldwide crisis. And think about this. If it were just the food alone going up in price, wouldn't be that big of a deal, right? People would probably not have that much of a difficult time coming up with more money to spend on food. But combine it with everything else that's going up at the same time. Combine that with rising interest rates. And we've got chaos that is unfolding right now as we speak. We're just at the beginning, so a lot of people will say this is exaggeration. Chaos is not unfolding. This is fear mongering. Well, folks, we're just at the beginning. If there were any signs of this situation being reversed, I would not be as concerned as I am. But we're just at the beginning, and the sad part is, the scary part is, most people have no idea what's coming. From this article here, the global hunger crisis is exploding as the war sends prices of key staples even higher, following a 25% spike in food insecurity last year. Now, articles like this, they're blaming it on the war. That's part of it. All the disruptions and all of the exports that ceased when the sanctions were implemented. It's definitely part of it, but we saw big problems even before this. Now combine that with the other types of inflation that farmers are facing, the record water shortage out here out west. Many people don't know that California is actually the largest agricultural state in the US. And we're facing a 1,000-year mega drought, right? Something also you don't hear on the news, which should be reported every night, in my opinion, because it's our food supply. And yes, there's other interesting news out there. Dave Chappelle got tackled on stage by a crazed person from the audience. But this is a global food crisis, and it's going to continue to get worse. And people are going to see these prices go even higher. And I don't know how long it's going to take before people actually wake up and realize that something big and something dangerous is happening. It's beginning. Also, farms just not able to keep up with the rising costs. A lot of the fertilizer comes from the part of the world where the war is happening. Combine that with the other rising costs, the rising property taxes, because now these owners of lands and farms and all homeowners, landowners, are going to see higher bites from the tax man. Steak prices will keep rising. Major U.S. meat packer says. More rising food costs, folks. It's not going to stop. National Beef Company, their costs to buy cattle are increasing. The company will ultimately be able to pass on the rising costs to the consumers in the form of higher prices for steaks and burgers. Now, a writer over at MarketWatch is calling this a double-pronged attack. The Fed lifting interest rates and the continued winding down of the $9 trillion stockpile of their balance sheet, which a lot of us here think is not going to happen. We think they're just bluffing. We think they're just pretending to fight inflation. If they really wanted to fight inflation, why don't they just raise the rates by 2%, 3%, 5%, 10%? Why don't they raise the rates higher to the rate of inflation? If they're saying that inflation is 7.5%, great, let's have 8% Fed funds rate to really fight inflation. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that they know they've blown bubbles so big, so enormous, that even tiny rate hikes have major impacts on affordability and people being able to borrow enough money to continue to purchase items and goods. Credit card interest rates are going to skyrocket. That's going to cause a pretty big disaster. In my opinion, if you look at our previous report, we talked about that, the levels of credit card debt, and this credit card interest is not fixed, it's variable, and you're going to see credit cards with 22, 23, 24% interest rates. Even at rock bottom Fed funds rate over the past many years, the average credit card rate was between 17 and 18%. Imagine what it's going to go to after these hikes. So the writer over here is calling this a double-pronged attack. It's not a very hard attack. It's not a very hard attack. It's not a very intense attack if they're really trying to fight inflation. It's more just taps, but sometimes when the house is so fragile, it only takes a few taps to bring it down, and that's what they're afraid of. This economy is so fragile because it's all pumped up. It's all pumped up on easy money, ultra low interest rates, deregulation of the banks, exploding debt levels, consumer debt. This doesn't end well, and they're going to keep these rate hikes minimal. Even a 0.5% is the highest in many decades, but in the grand scheme of things, it's very tiny. So we see right here the 0.5 percentage point rate hike, the biggest in 2 decades to fight inflation. Is it really going to fight inflation? Is it going to be enough? Well, it's already slowing down the housing market. Now that's going to take many months to play out because home prices after a home is put on the market and sold, it takes many months for that process. And we may not start seeing the numbers resulting from this until about August, September timeframe. Now it looks like the levels of consumer debt have gotten so high that things like this are happening in Georgia. Georgia just became the latest state to require personal finance education. Isn't it interesting that we go through school and we learned all these things that a lot of them, and I would dare to say most of them, are really not ever used in our lives. So think about all the complicated mathematical formulas that you had to remember, you had to show your work. But most of us, the math that we really need to do in day-to-day activities can be done on a simple calculator. So yes, how's about learning how interest works? How's about learning how debt works? How's about learning how money is created out of thin air? And therefore we can have unlimited spending, unlimited budget deficits, unlimited debt, but yet you and I still have to pay interest on the debt when we borrow money, even though they create it out of thin air. How's about teaching that? Well, something tells me that even the classes that are going to be implemented as a result of what's happening here in Georgia is not going to tell people the real situation with money. Okay, we're going to wrap this one up, folks. Please let me know what you think down in the comments. The markets are ignoring the global food crisis. The Fed, they say they're fighting inflation. Are they really fighting it? I don't think so. They're not fighting it very hard. Thanks everybody for being here. Peace.